Volkswagen is facing one of the most turbulent chapters in its century-long history, a moment where the decisions it takes will determine whether the company continues as a dominant global automaker or fades under the weight of its own missteps. Once celebrated as a symbol of German industrial might, Volkswagen is now battling on multiple fronts. The global shift toward electric vehicles, intense competition from Tesla and Chinese car makers, the scars of the diesel emissions scandal, mounting debt, and the structural inefficiencies that come from being a giant with deep political entanglements. The words of CEO Thomas Schäfer, who declared in a company-wide meeting that the roof is on fire, reflect just how critical the situation has become. For a company that has survived wars, economic depressions, and global crises, this is a warning that cannot be taken lightly. The urgency in Schäfer's tone was a wake-up call to Volkswagen's leadership. In an address to thousands of senior managers, he admitted that costs were spiraling out of control and that the company had lost the agility required to survive in a rapidly changing industry. To underscore the severity, he called for an immediate spending freeze and the implementation of a radical turnaround program aimed at saving billions of euros over the next few years. What this really meant was that Volkswagen could no longer afford to carry on with business as usual. The company has become too large, too bureaucratic, and too divided between competing interests, unable to move at the speed required in today's automotive world. Volkswagen's problems did not appear overnight. The company has long been haunted by its role in the 2015 diesel emission scandal, which shattered consumer trust and forced it into billions of dollars in settlements. Part of that aftermath included storing more than 300,000 cars, perfectly new in many cases, across deserts, old stadiums, and empty factories in North America. These cars, bought back from customers or dealers, were left to deteriorate under the sun as a reminder of the company's deception. That scandal not only drained financial resources, but also forced Volkswagen to accelerate its push into electric mobility as a way to reinvent its tarnished image. In theory, this pivot should have turned the company into a leader of the EV age. In reality, it has exposed all of Volkswagen's weaknesses. The ID series, Volkswagen's flagship line of electric vehicles, has failed to capture the kind of excitement or loyalty that Tesla has managed to inspire. Customers have complained about software glitches, clunky interfaces, and pricing that feels out of step with the market. Despite some initial momentum, sales have slowed sharply in Europe, where demand collapsed after the government eliminated subsidies that once made electric vehicles affordable to corporate fleets and business customers. Because business buyers represented the majority of Volkswagen's electric vehicle sales in its home market, the effect was devastating. Sales plummeted almost overnight, leaving factories with idle capacity and forcing Volkswagen to cut shifts, reduce production, and lay off temporary workers at plants in Zwickau and Dresden. The company even halted assembly for weeks at a time, something almost unthinkable for a brand of Volkswagen's scale. If Germany is a problem, China is an even greater one. For decades, Volkswagen was the dominant foreign automaker in China, controlling a vast share of the market and enjoying enviable profits. But the landscape has shifted. Domestic manufacturers like BYD have surged ahead, offering cheaper, more technologically advanced electric cars that appeal to China's increasingly savvy and nationalistic consumers. Tesla, too, has entrenched itself with its Gigafactory in Shanghai, producing cars at costs Volkswagen cannot match. As a result, Volkswagen's market share in China has slipped, and its once reliable profit engine has sputtered. To make matters worse, Volkswagen's rigid distribution model in China prevents dealers from flexibly adjusting prices, leaving them unable to compete effectively in a market where aggressive discounting often determines success. In response to these mounting pressures, Volkswagen is being forced to consider options that would once have been unthinkable. There is now open discussion about closing entire factories in Germany. The company's labor costs at home are nearly double those of many rivals abroad, making it impossible to compete on price without drastic restructuring. Plant closures in Germany are not just a financial issue. They carry enormous political weight, given that the government of Lower Saxony owns a significant stake in Volkswagen, and employee councils wield enormous power over decision-making. But for all the political sensitivities, the math is brutal. Volkswagen cannot maintain its bloated cost base and hope to survive in a global EV market that is being defined by speed, efficiency, and affordability. Volkswagen's debt levels add yet another layer of risk. With close to $200 billion in liabilities, it is among the most indebted companies in the world. Servicing this debt limits its flexibility to invest in the future, while increasing pressure to deliver profits from a core business that is anything but healthy. This financial strain comes at the same time Volkswagen is being forced to pour billions into battery factories, new EV architectures, and partnerships to fix its long-struggling software arm. Years of failed in-house development efforts at its CARIAD software division delayed critical models and damaged Volkswagen's reputation for reliability. The recent partnership with Rivian, where Volkswagen committed billions to access Rivian's software platform, is an admission that it cannot solve these issues quickly enough on its own. All of these challenges beg the question, why push EVs so heavily in the first place if demand is faltering? The reality is that Volkswagen, like every other European automaker, is bound by the European Union's aggressive emissions targets. The EU has already legislated the eventual phase-out of internal combustion engines, leaving companies with little choice but to electrify. The problem for Volkswagen is that it now finds itself in the most expensive and vulnerable phase of this transition. It must still maintain combustion engine operations, which remain profitable, while simultaneously ramping up EV production that has yet to prove sustainable. This dual burden drains resources, confuses strategy, and exposes the company to losses on both sides. There are also practical challenges tied to EV technology itself. The industry as a whole is grappling with the looming issue of battery recycling. Most electric cars today use lithium-ion batteries, which are heavy, complex, and contain hazardous materials that are difficult to dispose of safely. Recycling rates remain shockingly low, with only a small fraction of these batteries currently being repurposed or reused. Volkswagen has made moves to address this, opening its first dedicated battery recycling facility in Salzgitter. But the scale of the challenge is immense. Without breakthroughs in recycling and second-life applications, the EV transition will eventually face environmental and cost barriers that even the largest car makers may struggle to overcome. Yet amid all these difficulties, Volkswagen is not giving up. It is recalibrating its strategy, shifting its focus toward producing high-volume, affordable models that can actually compete with Chinese brands on price. Plans are underway for a new generation of entry-level EVs, with target prices well under $25,000. These cars, potentially beginning with an ID.1 model, are intended to replace older offerings and give Volkswagen a fighting chance in the mass market. At the same time, the company is streamlining its product line to reduce unnecessary complexity. Where previous models offered dozens of different trim levels and customization options, newer EVs are being designed with far fewer configurations, cutting costs and speeding up production. Whether this will be enough remains an open question. Tesla continues to dominate global EV sales and enjoys the advantage of being lean, flexible, and unburdened by the legacy costs of a century-old industrial giant. Chinese competitors like BYD, NIO, and XPeng are innovating at breakneck speed, supported by vast domestic markets and state-backed industrial policy. Volkswagen, by contrast, must navigate the treacherous waters of European politics, union negotiations, and shareholder expectations while simultaneously fighting to win back consumers who increasingly view the company as slow, expensive, and unreliable in the EV space. Volkswagen's current predicament can best be described as a race against time. It must slash costs, simplify its operations, and deliver affordable, desirable EVs before its debt burden, labor expenses, and structural inefficiencies overwhelm it. The CEO's warning that the roof is on fire is not hyperbole, but a recognition that the company is at a tipping point. If it can execute its turnaround strategy, invest smartly in software and battery technologies, and reconnect with customers through quality and value, it can emerge from this storm leaner, stronger, and still relevant. If it fails, the once mighty Volkswagen Group could find itself marginalized in the very industry it helped to build. For now, Volkswagen is fighting for survival in an automotive world that has no patience for delay. The outcome will not only determine the fate of one company, but also shape the future of Europe's automotive industry. Whether Volkswagen regains its footing or succumbs to the pressures of a rapidly changing market will be one of the defining business stories of this decade.